Welcome to another episode of Preparing for the Unexpected. I'm your host, Alex Fullick, and as always, we like to talk about things related to crisis management, COVID, resilience, business continuity, anything that helps you, your organization, or your community prepare for, respond to, and overcome adverse situations. If you'd like to be a guest, please feel free. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm the only Alex Fullick there. I'm really easy to find, and I do respond to everything I get. Alternatively, you can find me at alexfullick.com. As you can tell by the change in background, it's time to talk with James Green for the next edition, our 12th, believe it or not, This Week in Business Continuity. James, welcome back.
Alex, hello. It feels like it's been forever.
Yeah, really.
We've both been busy.
Yeah, it's been an extended gap here all of a sudden.
Extended gap, yes.
Yeah, but it's good. I'm glad you're finally here. We got some juicy things to talk about.
Thank you. Yeah, this is my first week back in my home office in 4 weeks, I think. So I've been very busy.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, now your kids can't stay out late at night and have fun, get away with things.
Exactly. Who knows? I have 2 teenage boys. Who knows what they do?
There you go.
I'll share a secret since they don't watch this show. I'll share a secret with the audience. We have security cameras outside our house. My sons think that I have security cameras inside the house. I've never corrected them on that mistake. So they think there's cameras everywhere in the house. There are no cameras anywhere.
So yeah, they'll never see this. So
maybe that helps. I don't know. So,
and I just want to say, James and I have an announcement to make at the end of the show. We're not going to tell you what it is yet. And as James suggested before we started recording, we're going to record a 4-hour episode and make you wait for it. Just kidding, we're not.
We might. You never know.
Yeah, we might. The way we go sometimes, you never know. Well, let's jump into what we were going to talk about today. The first one is last week was the Drj Spring Conference, and you were there.
Yes, I was there live in person in Orlando, Florida. There were, I think, between attendees and vendors and exhibitors and speakers, 500-600 people. It was a lot of people, and it was a lot of excited people. So Alex and everyone in the audience, you know, when you go to a conference, the first night is always an opening reception in the exhibit hall. So vendors and sponsors like me are circling like sharks to pounce on you, and you go because you have your 2 drink tickets and you want to meet some friends, and then you all run out of there, right? Yeah. So last Sunday at DRJ, the opening reception ran from 5 to 7, so a good amount of time, 2 hours. People were so excited that at 7:15, the place was still full and staff had to kind of scoot people out the door. I've never seen anything like that. And I think the excitement was just around being back in person for the first time for most of us since 2019. So that was very exciting. And for me, a lot of things have changed in the last couple of years. One, you know, obviously I had to wear shoes, right? Wear a jacket, all these clothes I had to go find again. Some didn't fit in the ways that I wanted them to, such is life. It was kind of tiring. This is kind of strange. Being around that many people in person, I was very tired every night. My kids accused me of being an old man. I really felt like an old man. But one of the things that jumped out at me, Alex, I want to get your take on this because you and I have talked about virtual versus in-person conferences the last couple of years. And I know, you know, I've seen all kinds of surveys. I work with conference organizers. I work with vendors. Some people prefer virtual. They don't want to get out of their pajamas. Or if you're more of an introvert, being around a lot of people can be stressful or changing your routine. But the things I noticed were those light bulb moments where you're having a conversation with someone. And what I do now, if someone says something that I want to follow up on, I send myself a text or an email because I'll forget it all week. jamming my phone, sending myself messages. So I think from a quality intellectual standpoint, it was much higher. And then being a speaker, having people come up to you afterwards is some of the most meaningful aspect of speaking at conferences. I know you speak at a lot of conferences as well. I haven't found it the same in a virtual conference. Maybe, I'll get a bunch of LinkedIn requests after I speak, but not a lot of questions or can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? And that's really, contrary to most people's belief. I don't speak just to hear myself speak, although I do like to talk a lot, as everyone knows. But having those people come up afterwards and be like, hey, can you help me with this? Or can you introduce me to that person? Or how do I get started? That's really meaningful. And I really have found that lacking the last couple of years. So that aspect of it, I was really, really excited about.
Yeah, I think that makes a difference for people too when it's face to face, because in a virtual setting and you see your chat list and you see everybody's name and you send a comment, a lot of times everybody sees your comment. So, oh, look what James just said, look what Alex just said. However, in a live setting, you can be walking by yourself down the hall and someone say, oh, here's my chance. I wanted to ask a question that I would have felt embarrassed about having other people hear it. But now I can just walk straight up to James and just ask him, hey, James, and then, ask whatever question is and not feel embarrassed.
Exactly. And you and I have also talked over the last couple of months, has the conference and event space changed permanently? What's it going to look like on the other side of a pandemic? One thing I found interesting, most people I spoke to who were not at DRJ, who wanted to be, said that they didn't have the budget for it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's going to be a permanent problem in the event space. You have not had that line item in your budget for 3 years, that travel expense. Getting that added back in is going to be really difficult for a lot of people. And 90% of the people I spoke to who weren't there, like I said, who wanted to be there, said, I got approval for the conference registration fee, just like I did for other virtual conferences the last couple of years. Travel was a no-go. So I really think numbers are going to be lower than 2019 at any type of conference for a long time, because that's a big, spending the money to go to a conference is a huge investment of time and resources and your employer's cash.
Yeah. It's not just the travel part, flight or train or whatever the case may be, but there's the hotels, the food, taxi fares, or whatever. There's all that other costs that come into play as well. But I know some conferences are already adapting to that. I'm not going to name it, but there's one in the fall that is over a couple of days, and one day is in person and the second day is virtual. So they are starting to adapt to all the things that you just said.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how conference organizers balance virtual conference versus an in-person without cannibalizing from either one. I think there's certainly a big opportunity there. We've seen the last 2 or 3 years attendance at BCI World, for example, skyrocket, because if you're outside of Europe, flying to London is phenomenally expensive. Mm-hmm. And most people could never attend a conference that costs $10,000 to $15,000 US all in. So, how will these organizations, will they, try to nurture and grow those expanded audiences while still trying to make things relevant for in-person? That's going to be a very interesting dynamic.
It's going to be interesting to see how exhibitors adapt to that as well.
Yeah. So
are they really going to bring a whole bunch of people for one day?
I don't think they are. Certainly what I've seen, I have been at 3 conferences now this year. I have seen that the conference booths are smaller than they were in the past. Most companies turn those booths over every year to 2 year, either from refreshing the brand or they just get damaged. They're stupid expensive. There was a vendor at DRJ who was trying to rent some cocktail tables, and they had them there for rent, $600 a table. Just a little put
Oh my
your
goodness.
pens on for 3 days. So I've certainly seen the booths are smaller, the swag is smaller, and to your point, the number of people staffing those booths are smaller because it's very expensive on the vendor side as well. And they're always going to be looking at where's our ROI. Should we put our money online, in person? What's that mix going to be? And that's going to sponsors drive conferences as much as attendees. And so it's all going to be interesting how it shakes out.
Yeah, and I think it won't shake out, as you say, for another year or two yet, until people and organizations start getting comfortable again, with what's acceptable, where you can go, and and it may mean some conferences downsize, but they may have more of them.
Yes.
Drj Spring may turn into a smaller conference, but now there's one in the one in fall in Phoenix, but maybe there's a summer one in St. Paul, Minnesota. Who knows? Then that's just example, and I'm not telling you, Bob, what Arnold DRJ what to do. Just an example. So
DRJ Hawaii. If Bob's watching,
yeah.
DRJ Hawaii, Alex
I'm
and
there.
I will be there.
I will be there for sure. Hint, hint. So there were, how do I put this delicately? There were some other things that happened at DRJ.
There was some conference drama. Let's dish on some conference drama. So the keynote speaker Monday morning was someone that I've gotten to know recently, Raven Solomon, who I'm just so impressed with. Raven, she has a podcast. Find her on LinkedIn, find her social, find her podcast. She speaks about diversity, not just race and gender, but really around generational diversity. Mm-hmm. And she said a lot of thought-provoking things on Monday morning. And for me, as a conference attendee, I want to see a keynote speaker challenge me intellectually, make me think about things intellectually. That's the point of a keynote, in my opinion. And I was kind of, first surprised and then disappointed that there were several people, or quite a few people, I guess, who walked out of Raven's keynote. And that was shocking to me. And then in the closing town hall, I was on the main stage as a panelist, and I said something that got me a ton of hate mail. So I'm going to go ahead and say it again on our show, because that's what we do.
You can send it to me.
Yeah. And Alex does check all his mail, so he'll filter it for me. But here's what I said, Alex, and I'd love to chew on it with you for a bit. I said that our profession, business continuity and resilience, does not mirror our society in terms of age, race, sex, gender, any way you look at it. And I think one, that's problematic because that's not the right thing to do. But two, I think what upset a lot of people is, I said, from a succession planning standpoint for our profession, if we get too niche and too out of disconnect, or too disconnected with the rest of, what happens when I think even shared through BC Management, Cheyenne Marling, that the average BC practitioner is a white male in his 50s. So I'm a white male in my late 40s. When we all retire, what's going to happen to our profession? And I say that, not out of condemnation, but I love our profession. I'm passionate about our profession. Somebody said I was a hype man for business continuity, and I loved that. And so I said it out of concern, where if you look at all the metrics for our profession and look at all the metrics in the United States and Canada, there's a huge disconnect. And I said, outside of it being morally the right thing to do, we have a succession planning problem in our profession. And a lot of people were really pissed off, frankly, that I said that on stage. I'd love to, get your thoughts on my opinion that we need to be more diverse in our profession in order to remain relevant in the business world.
Well, I agree with you. So now you can send me hate mail. But I agree with you for a couple of reasons. Right now, I looked, well, not at this very moment, but I looked on LinkedIn earlier, and there were a few training sessions or webinars or panel discussions being promoted by groups that I follow. And you could see that the panel was not diverse. It was the 50-year-old man, all CEOs and presidents and things like that. I was like, well, that's not diverse. First of all, just the appearance of some of the things are not diverse. Unfortunately, we have to have things like women in resilience, and Reena Singh and her fantastic team and all the great work they do. By rights, they shouldn't have to do that, because we should already be diverse. We should have this, inclusivity mindset, but unfortunately we don't. And people, champions like Reena and Margaret Millett and many others are standing up, and I champion them, and I'm really happy to see them do that. But they exist because of some of these things I'm already seeing of panelists where it's 50-year-old men. Yes, and I'm not picking on 50-year-old men, because it's not fair to say that, because not everybody who's 50-year-old white started in the industry when they were 20. But these other groups exist because they have challenges trying to get to those upper areas and get their messages and their concerns and their ideas and even their voice heard and understood. So I do think it is a problem. I'm not seeing, I'm hearing some places that are saying, we bring in the youth into our industry, but how are we doing that? By showing panelists with 50-year-old white men? That doesn't cut it. That's not going to bring new people into a university or a college course or BCI or DRI and taking their courses. That's not going to do it, because they're not seeing people representative of where they come, their color, their sex, their religion, their whatever the case may be. They're not there. So we do run a risk of when 10 years from now, 50-year-olds or something, they do start semi-retiring. So in 10 years, we could have a problem. Where are we going to be? Where's our industry going to be? Is that the time we do get swallowed up by risk or some other area? So I do agree. It is a challenge right now, because our industry is not depicting it. We might be talking about it. And to be honest, I don't think our industry is talking about it. They're getting others to do the talking, and they're just partnering with them. But the industry leaders, myself, I don't think they are actually addressing it themselves. Because we see, like I said, on LinkedIn, other groups promoting, sponsored by these groups, but I'm not seeing somebody from a BCI or a DRI or some of the other ones, because there's so many different groups around the globe, stepping up and saying, we believe in this and this is what we're doing about it. That I'm not seeing. I'm not saying it doesn't occur, but I'm not seeing it forcefully presented, saying we are going to fight this. We are going to make a difference. It's more of, we'll make a difference with this webinar sponsored by so-and-so.
Yeah, I think that diversity of thought is so important in our profession. One, to mitigate, just at its base, to mitigate risk. If 5 people are in the room and they all think the same, and we have a disaster, or we're trying to predict a disaster, we're all going to come up with the same answer.
Yeah.
That's not good. And to your point, we've all seen panel discussions that are terrible, honestly. And I've moderated a ton of panels, and so have you. They go terrible, in my opinion, for one of two reasons. One, nobody's prepared for the panel and they just wing it when they get up there. If you're a panelist, don't do that. Two, as a moderator, if I'm trying to find some interesting things for the audience to digest, and all three panelists say the exact same thing and have the exact same thoughts, it's a slog. I want three panelists who have very different opinions on really everything. It makes for a more interesting panel for the moderator, certainly selfishly, but then it makes for more, I think, interesting dialogue for the audience. And I love conferences when I see people like Raven Solomon, who we've never seen at a business continuity conference. Ashley Guzman was moderating a panel on the general session stage for the first time. I want to see people I haven't seen before at our industry conferences. I think that's great for the longevity of the industry. And I think it makes it more interesting when somebody I don't even know gets up on stage. I have no idea what they're going to say. And I love that.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't like it when everybody agrees on the same point, because, well, what am I getting out of it then as somebody watching it? You challenge me. I'm here because I want to learn something. It doesn't mean what you're saying is applicable to my current situation, but it gives me a new idea somewhere down the road at a different place, or when the environment changes where I am, it's like, oh, well, I have another idea I could try out. And I think that's better. And just because people have a different opinion or a different viewpoint doesn't mean anybody is wrong. It's because our viewpoints all come from our own experiences and our own organizational cultures. This is how we do things here. Well, okay, that doesn't mean you're wrong. Let me learn from it, because we do something different over here. But I like what you said. You gave 10 points, but I like this one. I think I can actually take that and maybe change something over here to make it better. That's fantastic. And I think we need to do that, like your point, seeing different people doing it and giving them the opportunity. I'd love to hear somebody really new in the industry really stand up and give their opinion of where things look, how it looks to them.
Exactly. I'm actually going to be sharing on social media a little later in the week, so a little preview here, talking about this subject in context of conferences. And we want more diversity in the people who submit to speak at a conference. And as you and I know, submitting to a conference is very similar. Writing a submission is similar to writing a resume. There's a methodology that you can use to help better the chances of getting your submission accepted. So if you're one of those people who's new to our industry or haven't spoken at a conference before and you're not sure where to start, like Alex said, he answers every email. Email him, email me. We'll get you some other resources. I want to see new and different people starting out, because I had someone ask me the other day, well, how do you get on the main stage? How do you keynote? Well, you start with a breakout track. We've all had that Sunday 5 p.m., Wednesday 5 p.m., 5 people in the room. That's where you start. And based on the reviews of your session, then you get moved up or around. So we want to help people who haven't submitted to speak at conferences before, get them started on the right path.
Yeah, I'd love to hear different perspectives and new ideas. That's what's going to keep us fresh, and that's going to keep us moving.
Exactly.
I want to learn from you as well. And there's always the talk about the mentoring programs and things like that, but new people in the industry have new eyes and fresh ideas. So, I'm always open to that as well.
Exactly.
Teach this old dog a new trick. So our next one, you had an article, excuse me, that you came across on Continuity Central about, well, actually, why don't you I'll let you talk about it.
Yeah. So, everybody knows I have to send Alex at least one article with a ton of stats for every broadcast. So I hope I don't mess up this name. Logicalis. I'm not familiar with that company, so I apologize. They released their 2021 global CIO survey. Now, so right off the bat, admittedly, because some people are going to say, oh, well, CIOs are biased towards technology. Of course they are. they should be thinking about technology. But let's run through some things that jumped out at me, and I'm sure there's some things that jumped out at you. 94% of CIOs acknowledge some form of serious threat to their organization over the next 12 months. The other 6% should be fired, maybe. But what was interesting for us here, Alex, only 27% list business continuity and resilience as a top 3 priority during the next 12 months. So now I know, like I said, CIOs are IT, IS focused, but you're also a member of that C-suite. You're supposed to have a view of the entire business, the entire operations. We're in year 3 of a pandemic. How can only 27% be thinking about BC and resilience as a top 3 priority? I'll give you ransomware. I mean, how are you not in the top 3? What are your thoughts when you read this report?
Well, I was kind of surprised when I read that as well. That makes no sense. We just had a global pandemic that everyone was impacted one way or another. There isn't anyone who could say that, oh, I was never impacted. I wouldn't believe you if someone told me. And I don't understand how a CIO would not have that in their top 3. But I bet you it's because, well, we made it through, so it's not a priority anymore. Already, they're looking at, well, how do I rebuild my brand or increase that bottom line? Leverage new technology, acquisitions and mergers, something to grow. Already, how fast, are they forgetting that they were just impacted? And that's what it seems like.
That was a big part of a discussion. Regina Phelps was on the main stage at DRJ last week, obviously, and a lot of people had questions for her around just that. Well, my executive said we survived COVID, so why do we need BC or resilience at all? And her question back, which I love, is yes, you may have survived, but did you thrive? If your business stagnated or decreased over the last 3 years and your competitors did not, you are probably never going to catch up to that. And so to your point, I think there's that false confidence of, well, we survived. That's like saying, well, you survived several gunshots, but is that a situation you want to be in again? I think business continuity and resilience hopefully ensure that we thrive during stressful times. And I was just really surprised to see that the CIO view of our profession it's still not on their radar. I'd love to hear from people what they thought CIO's top 3 risks going into the next 12 months are, if it's not anything BC or resilience related. Certainly it's going to be some kind of ransomware, malware, hack in some iteration, but there still leaves another slot.
Well, I think that's part of the problem too, is CIOs and C-suite people in general still don't fully understand what business continuity is.
Yes.
Because cyber events still triggers crisis management, business continuity, and other processes, but they do only see we have a cyber attack, so it's just security related. We only have to worry about security. Well, wait a minute. What's the business doing while you've brought all your systems down? What are you doing? Who are you communicating? All your partners. What are you telling them? And your suppliers. They don't see that part. They just see cybersecurity, ransomware. That's our big thing. And I'm not saying they shouldn't. Obviously, they should. But they've got blinders on. They're not understanding that business continuity management and resilience is a lot bigger than just one thing.
Correct.
And I think that happens a lot, unfortunately.
And I think we saw that last week with the Okta. A lot of people in our audience probably use Okta for 2-factor authentication with their breach last week. That's a business continuity event, one that permanently damages their brand. Would you trust Okta again? It looks like one of the companies that use them, Sitel, was storing their LastPass administrator master passwords in an Excel spreadsheet, which was the start of that hack, I think that's the business continuity event for them as well. Like Sitel is a company that offers call center and business process outsourcing. Why would you outsource right now to a company that's storing master passwords in a spreadsheet? Why would you use Okta over another type of two-factor authentication that allowed that kind of upstream? That's a business continuity event. That's a true crisis. Yes, to your point, it started as an information security, cybersecurity issue, but it's now a resilience issue.
Yeah.
And those companies are finding that out the hard way this week.
Yes. And sometimes when they find that out, that's the last thing they're going to find out, because nobody's going to want to work with them again. And so the last thing we're going to talk about is the current Ukraine and Russia war.
Yeah.
What's happening in the resilience and business continuity industries?
Yeah, I want to, I was thinking about this a lot because again, at the conference, the last couple of conferences, the last few weeks, people are talking about this. And, they initially were talking about the tactical issues of, oh, this is going to affect our supply chain. This is going to affect our employees in Ukraine. I know a company that's has moved people from not just Ukraine, but neighboring countries, and they're going further into Western Europe. So a lot of the conversations that we all had as business continuity professionals were around the tactical response to this incident, which it should be. What I found interesting, Alex, the last week and a half, a lot of people have been talking to me about this is a bridge too far, the straw that broke the camel's back. Pick an analogy that in terms of now yet having another concurrent event, people are just burning out and breaking. John Louisi, who's the head of business continuity for Southern Glacier Wine and Spirits, said last week he's in day 750 of activation for COVID. I don't think we were designed to do a 750-day response and also manage a pandemic with some type of cyber incident with now, a huge potential global war. And I'm seeing more people struggle in our profession with their mental health and their quality of life the last 2 weeks than I have ever. And it's concerning. So I'd love to hear, what are you hearing, the people you're speaking to in our profession, what's on their mind? What are they thinking as we, again, everyone said COVID will be over in 2 weeks. And then a lot of people said Russia's going to roll through Ukraine in 24 hours. God bless the people in Ukraine. They're in week 5 and they're going nowhere. But we have yet another, just from our tiny professions, myopic point of view, we have yet another thing happening. And we're not built for this many concurrent disasters for this long of a time frame.
I agree. And I think a lot of people that aren't even in business continuity or resilience are feeling the same way because they've gone through COVID for over 2 years as well. They've had challenges, single parents, or even, couples looking after their children, etc. But now the Russia-Ukraine situation has made it tough, has a different kind of an impact now because it's not just supply chains, it's food supply chains as well. Because Ukraine, I don't know if a lot of people know, but they are number 3 or number 4 or something like that, wheat producer in the world. Now, what kind of impact is that going to have? Knowing that they're in the middle of a war right now, their tanks and everything are rolling all over the fields, destroying farms, and there's going to be a bigger impact. So it is going to be more stressful for people because now they're spending more. Gas prices are going up. So that's hard to deal with, especially when offices and organizations are starting to say, we want people to come back to the office now. Well, wait a minute. You want me to come back to the office, but I can't afford the gas. It's too expensive. You mentioned Regina Phelps. Well, I actually interviewed her yesterday for her monthly talk.
Oh,
And
great.
so we talked about that too. And she was staying out in California, and I hope I get this right. It was somewhere around $6 a gallon or something.
Mhm.
We
Yes.
deal with liters up here, so it's,
Yeah.
I don't have an exact, way of bringing those together, but $6 a gallon. I don't even remember how big a gallon is, but that sounds like a lot to me.
That's probably twice as high as it was 7 weeks ago for your international audience. Gas prices have doubled in a lot of parts of the United States. Yeah.
Yeah. And with a lot of people in our industry, and I'll just talk about people in Europe and North America for now. Actually, no, I could include anybody around the globe here. Ukraine is in one time zone, and some of our professionals that are around the globe are in different time zones.
Mhm.
So they're still monitoring and having to watch what the impacts are of Ukraine in a kind of real time. You can't just go to bed and think, oh, this happened last night. Okay, now I have to deal with it. You got to stay on top of it. So they're staying awake and more alert longer while still dealing with some COVID. I don't want to say restrictions, but you're in your pandemic plan type stuff, going back to the office. There are still fires and floods going on. It's all of a sudden become, kind of what you said, to a degree, a 24/7 role. And people can't keep going like that. And then you've got what we talked about in our last segment, CIOs and C-suite who don't fully understand what business continuity management is or resilience is, and may have a blind eye to what's happening in some of these areas. And I think that is going to compound, and people's well-being and mental health, in the office, because, I may be happy to go back to the office, but my mental health is all messed up. Well, sadly, I could cause trouble in the office because of it.
Yeah.
One too many events, and I just can't handle it anymore.
Exactly. And I think this is where the companies whose business continuity teams have been chronically understaffed or a team of one, those companies are struggling right now, and those people are leaving those companies.
Yeah.
You're a single point of failure. You have no backup. You were designed to do the minimal amount required, and now we're in a maximum amount required time.
Yeah.
So,
and you don't have the time or the energy to do it anymore.
correct.
It gets to the point, which disaster am I going to look at today? Now, I know we used to joke about that, years ago, like, oh, there's something happening every day.
But now it's reality.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But now it's reality. It really is happening. We have war. We have supply chain issues. We are having, fires out in California and Texas and Australia and British Columbia, even in Northern Europe, we're having that. And we're having earthquakes. We're having volcanoes that are stopping flights and shipping and things like that. And, all in a pandemic. Where was the red line?
Yeah, I think we're crossing it.
Yeah, we crossed it. We can't even see it anymore.
Exactly.
So you mentioned mental health, and I'm getting a little PO'd with some of the organizations that are out there saying, yeah, this is a key issue, but they're not addressing it.
What are you doing about it?
Yeah. I'm, Luke Bird. We did a show with him, and I know he did a great show with Mark Hoffman on the topic of mental health, and he shared some of his own stories.
He did, yeah.
And he's not the only person. There are other people who are experiencing this in our industry, outside of the industry. But just focusing on our industry, what is DRI doing about it? What is BCI doing about it? They're not addressing it. And yet everybody's acknowledging the fact, as we just said, a lot of people are under stress, are overworked, under a lot of stress, working beyond their capabilities. So what are we doing about it? Nothing. I'm not seeing anything. Unless I'm wrong, people can prove me wrong. You can send me an email. I don't care.
Send them an email.
Prove me wrong. What are these industries doing to help and address it? And don't tell me that, oh, there's a webinar to talk about it. No, I want to see action. No more talk. It's been months and months, years. I want to see action.
Exactly.
You know. On that happy note, we had some controversies today, didn't we?
We did.
We are going to get some emails. We have to
Good.
get some emails.
Send us email. We love emails. We love feedback.
Yeah.
Love criticism because we like different points of view. So send them in.
So why don't we let's do what we're reading, and then we'll go to the announcement as our last.
All right.
We'll end on a happy note.
I just finished up. It's a book called The Cold War, A New History by John Lewis Gaddis. He wrote a book called On Grand Strategy, which I believe won the Pulitzer Prize. Don't quote me on that. But he was a very prolific writer during the Cold War. And he's recently released a new book now that this was before Russia invaded Ukraine. After the Cold War has ended, looking back at, knowing what we know, everything we know now, looking back at it, quick read, great read, found it very relevant right now, given Putin and Russia and Ukraine. So I burned through that on spring break with my kids, my nightly read. So that's the most recent book I've read.
Well, since the last time we talked, I read quite
Probably
a bit.
have 20 books.
No, just 4.
Oh.
The first one, Political Risk Management for the Global Supply Chain.
Oh, nice.
By Ralph Klein. He's been on the show before. I've reached out to him, and we're recording an episode next week.
Excellent.
So that was an interesting book, considering the times right now. Change Management for Risk Professionals. You'd think I had you in mind when I was reading these, eh? By Dr. James Leffler. He's been on the show before too. A lot of interesting information in here. So we are also going to record an episode.
Nice. Noticing a pattern here.
Yeah. Well, almost a pattern. It kind of gets a little gray right now. But the other book I finished was The Broken CEO, How to Be the Leader You Always Wanted to Be, by Chris Pierce. I wanted to talk to him because with people that are going back to the office, it's changing the dynamics of what leaders need to do and how they communicate and things like that. So I wanted to get his perspective on things.
Nice.
And I have reached out to him to be on the show, by the way, but I'm just waiting to hear a date from him. And Leading the Unleadable, How to Manage Mavericks, Cynics, Divas, and Other Difficult People.
Did you read that one for me, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. No, I'm just kidding. But for the same reason, the other book is, the interactions between people is different. People are socially awkward. Regina told me, being a DRJ, that sometimes there wasn't a lot. Sometimes she could still feel that there was some hesitancy with some people wanting to get close and things like that. So I thought, okay, this will be interesting, how to deal with, the new office and how people have changed, how you deal with it, because their behaviors and attitudes are going to be a little bit different after being locked at home for 2 years. So, and I've also reached out to Alan Millett, the author of that book, and I'm waiting again for a date to record with him. Now let's end on a happy note, and I'm going to let you announce it.
So we've got some very big news. Alex and I obviously study risk, teach risk, train on risk. So we also take risk. And I think for the first time, I'm going to see you in person, Alex, in years.
Yeah.
Prior to the pandemic. But Alex and I will both be speaking at the Continuity Insights Conference in Louisville, Kentucky at the end of April. But the big news is we will be broadcasting live from Continuity Insights in the Illuminate Advisory booth, brought to you by Illuminate Advisory and Stone Road. We're going to try live broadcasting on the exhibit hall floor. Might be a train wreck, might be amazing, might be somewhere in between. So please check that out on Alex's channel. We'll be on YouTube Live. I believe.
Yep.
If you want to be a guest, if you're going to be at Continuity Insights, send one of us a message. We're currently planning out the schedule. If there's topics you want us to address live on the air, send those to us as well. I'm I would say I'm equally excited and terrified that we're doing this over multiple days, mostly excited. Sometimes late at night, I'm like, what did we commit ourselves to? But I'm looking forward to it.
So am I. And to your point, if anyone even has a question, send a question as well. Either one of us, we're both on LinkedIn, easy to find. And we will be sending and posting some more details as to when our live segments are going to be over that conference period. And we'll be sending that out through LinkedIn as well, so everybody can log up and get that in your calendars and watch us fall flat on our face or have a great time. Yeah.
Looking forward to it, Alex. I don't think I've seen you since September of 2019.
2019. Yeah.
Okay.
At DRJ.
So it's been a while. It's been a while.
When we were actually live with Voice America.
We were. I had technical difficulties the entire time.
Yeah, the headphones.
So hopefully we won't have those this time.
No, we won't have headphones this time.
That's right. We won't be able to hear anything anyways. So,
well, James, any final thoughts, any final comment before we end this one?
No, it's been exciting. It's conference season. It's been exciting to see people. If you're going to be, like I said, if you're going to be a Continuity Insights or another conference you want us to have on our radar, let us know.
Yeah, great. On that note, we've come to the end of another episode of This Week, This Week in Business Continuity with James Green. James, thanks. It's always great chatting with you.
Thanks, Alex. I'll see you in a few weeks.
Yes, you will. And everybody watching, stay prepared, everybody. If you like that video, thumbs up. If you didn't like that video, thumbs down. But leave me a message and let me know your thoughts. Of course, don't forget to subscribe. And in the meantime, stay prepared, everybody.